Hello everyone. This is a tutorial on how to make an attack animation. I'm not sure if I'm going to have too much time for this demo in particular, but if you've watched my run cycle animation tutorial, I'm definitely not going to skip any steps because that was a tutorial that was a great example of why we should honor the blocking out method because it's much easier for us to get the desired results that we want from our animation. So I'm going to be doing the same method that I always do, going into blocking, but this time I'm actually going to teach you how to upload some of your reference. First thing I'm going to do is, if you haven't already, please watch how to upload a video reference to Maya. I prefer using SyncSketch, believe it or not, to transcode my files. It's so much easier and it's much nicer because my reference is already up there. Let me just quickly show you. Again, there's already a tutorial on this, but if your movie file does not work well with Maya, all you have to do is upload your file to SyncSketch. You're then going to re-download your file, but as a transcoded file, and that will be acceptable to Maya 2022. So let me just quickly show you what that looks like. You're going to go into View. You're going to go to Image Plane, Import Movie. In this case, I'm in the side or the front view. But if I put it in perspective, let me just show you what happens. Let's go to Image Plane, Import Movie. If you were to upload a reference to your perspective view, this is exactly what would happen. Now you can see the reference, but it's in the background forever. And it's forever in this camera view, which is fun, but not necessarily helpful for what we need. So what I'm going to do is delete this, and I'm going to go to the front view. I'm going to select the front view, and let's mark perspective camera. Go to the front view, and I'm going to do the same thing, but in the front view. And it's going to yield a result that's going to maintain my reference in that front view, like so. Perfect. So now that I'm in the front view, I'm going to move this up really quickly. By the way, in a perfect world, I would prefer that my animation reference be head on so that my feet are completely level with the horizon. It's going to be difficult for me to use this reference because it is in a perspective view. However, it definitely does help me when I am trying to dictate where my frames are. So let's just keep that there for now. So next after that, I'm going to go into my left view. In this case, my left view is going to be for my right reference. So let's go ahead and upload that. Let's go to View, Image Plane, Import Movie, find your downloaded reference, like so. Bam. Awesome. And this is going to be much more easier to animate from. So I'm going to prefer animating from this view specifically. So let's go ahead and go into perspective view. Make sure that my reference is at least closer so I can see better. And if you want to, you can do this if it's easier just to get the tab. Or what you can do is just go over here into the Translate X. I don't know why it's close to 1,000. Let's make that 0. Press Enter, and it automatically goes directly to the grid. So now that I have that, I'm going to push this back. And as you can see, my references are totally different sizes, and they're actually out of sync as well. So that's actually not too big of a problem. Let's see if I can fix that here. It's been a while since I've done this. I want to see if it's any different in Maya 2022, but I want to see if I can actually sync these up inside of Maya. And then little guest appearance from Sherpa. All right, so now that I have that, I'm going to quickly import my rig. In this case, I'm going to upload a goblin rig. So let's go to create reference. Let's find one of my favorite rigs. Let's go down here. It is the goblin rig. And before I get too excited, let's see. let me make sure that my Karnak is on as well, so that everyone can see the keys that I'm pressing. Perfect. Awesome. So we have a couple options. Now, depending on the rig, you can shrink the rig. Let's see if we can do that. If I'm looking at this now, it looks like there is no option to be able to shrink the size of my rig. But that's okay, because worst case scenario, if that does happen, we can always change the size of the reference. So what I'm going to do is going to the front view, and I'm just going to zoom out. Let's press F. Actually, let's just do this. Press the A button so you can see everything much faster. Okay, so I'm going to change the size of this. Now, again, this is not going to be perfect. In fact, I don't want to animate too much from this side. I really want to check to make sure that my angles and my spine is okay. But I don't want to animate from this too much because the perspective view is going to distract me quite a bit. So what I really want to do is I want to animate from my left view. And again, press the A key to make it easier to see everything faster. And I'm going to move this in a way that is much easier to see. And really, I don't want to spend too much time on this because, again, I'll spend forever animating because it's honestly one of my favorite things to do. But to try to keep it simple, I'm going to try to keep it to the basics. Really, the key poses, the main in-betweens, and then I'm going to quickly spline it. And hopefully do some cleanup as well. So let's do that. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the rig works. I've already worked with this rig a multitude of times, so I know it's going to be good. Next thing I want to do after doing your checks, making sure that you break things, see what works, what doesn't work. Let's see. These feet can be funny sometimes. They get broken very easily, so be mindful of that. But other than that, this is a rig that I trust very much so. So next thing we're going to do is back these up. I want to make sure that I have some space to work here so I can see everything. Personally, I'm not going to animate this tail. If you're learning body mechanics, I highly recommend that you use a biped without too many extra ligaments or facial features as well. Luckily, the face is turned off right now, but if someone was interested, you could turn on the facial controls by clicking on the head and then turning on the controls like so. I'm not going to do that because I just want to get the basics of the attack done. The face comes afterwards. Always comes afterwards. So, now that we have that, I'm going to simply rotate the hips. I'm going to rotate the hips to make them match my reference as close as possible. And if it's easier, you can also do a wireframe like so, and you can see through your actual reference. And if it's even easier, you can turn off the grid so you get less of that noise happening. And you know what? I think I can do one more better than this. And there. Turning this on makes it so it's much easier for me to see the wireframe. So let me go ahead and move that like so. I'm going to turn back on my image reference. Sometimes it's honestly easier for me to animate without the control colors. So I'm just going to do that. And basically all I'm doing right now is I'm trying to match the pose to the best of my ability right now. I just want to match the major key poses on my character. And as you can see, again, the feet are very, very sensitive on the ankle. Keep that in mind. Honestly, the easiest fix is just moving the kneecap, like so. Always remember, your kneecap should generally be facing the direction of your foot. And we kick this foot out just a little bit more. So this is the less exciting part for some people. actually moving your character in the pose that we want. This is honestly my favorite part though, because I get to determine exactly what my character looks like. So right now, just taking time. I'm not stressed. I'm not sweating. I'm not worried. I'm not even thinking about how awesome this animation is going to be when we're done. What I'm really thinking about is, can I get this character in an appealing pose for my key poses? So let's go ahead and go back to the left view. Check this out. I'm now going to curl this in, and it looks like my body's rotating a little bit towards the right. So let me just go ahead and start rotating the body that way. Okay, start rotating like so. And then it's going down the line. Bam. Bam. Also, if you've noticed, I'm accidentally animating my reference. That's okay, because I'm just going to make a new layer for that. So I'm going to create a new layer. We'll call this reference so I don't accidentally animate on it. So we'll call this reference. Save that. And now I can go over here and make sure that I don't accidentally animate on this. Perfect. And then I'm going to do that on the front view, but I'll do that later. So now that I have that, I'm going to now, let's see, start rotating the head. Again, I just want to try to match my reference as close as possible. And looks like that's pretty good. Looks like I'm facing pretty head on, so I'll just do that. And then looks like my head's bobbing down just a little bit. So let's go ahead and bob the head down just a bit. Remember, I also want to make sure that I have an appealing pose here. I want to make sure that the flow of the body isn't broken. If it is broken, it'll feel very, very stiff as we're animating. So the next thing we want to do, oh no, my shoulder doesn't perfectly match up with my reference. That's okay. What I want to do is I want to try to move it as close as I possibly can. And let's see. Let's just see what the shoulders are doing. Looks like my shoulder's coming up quite a bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Like so. Remember, I'm doing the hips first, then the feet. Then I can start worrying about all these other cool things. So let's go ahead and move this like so. Looking at my reference, this is way too down. Okay, that's good. That's pretty close. Perfect. And then last but not least, let's get this last one here. And it looks like this shoulder's down a little bit. So let's actually move this up a little bit so it's lower than the other one. But I still want it to be up just a smidge. Because remember, I'm kind of crunching down on this reference a little bit. So my shoulders are coming up as a result. So let's go ahead and do that like that. Okay, and then I'm pretty close to the arm being in the right place. Let's just move this up just a little bit more. And then we're going to rotate it up just a little bit so I can get that same kind of hand angle like so. And already that's kind of a nice flow right there. It's matching up my reference pretty well. Cool. So now that we have that, I also want to make sure that I have some rotation on that spine over there. So this is another cool thing, doing it in perspective view, or you can do my personal favorite and do the 3-panel view. In the 3-panel view, or you can do 4, depending on the size of your screen. My screen isn't that big, so what I like to do is I like to have one view in the side view, one in the front view, and then my third panel is going to be perspective view. That's where I can mess around and noodle however I want. Don't have to worry about ruining the camera. And if you really want to, you can create in your 4th panel a perspective view. So if I were to do this, like let's say I wanted this actual view to be for my character, I'm going to go to, I believe it's panels. Let's see, it's render, show view. Let's see. I want to say it's create camera from view. tool, camera editor. Oh man, I forgot. That's okay though. I'll probably pick that up later in the tutorial. Anyway, if you really want to, you can go to create, you can go to cameras, camera, dial this back, and then you can go to show or panel, look through selected. And then this will be my new camera view. So let me go ahead and put the film gate on. I want my character to be in that film gate as much as possible. So I'm going to close this in so I can see the film gate better. This seems like a pretty good view to me. So now that I have that camera set up, I'm going to freeze everything on the camera. Freeze all. I'm going to lock selected. So now I cannot accidentally get out of this camera view. Now what I can do is go to panels, look through selected again. Oh, sorry, find the camera that you want. Make sure to name your camera as well, by the way. So I'll just call this render cam. And I'm doing this specifically because if I'm making a demo reel for this character, I'm going to want my character to try to be in an appealing pose right here. Because I want to present my character in a 3/4 view so you can see all the animation that's going on all the different axes. Mostly. So now that I have that render cam selected, I'm going to go to this panel view, look through selected, and now when I animate, let me just drop this down. Now when I animate, I can see what my character looks like in my render camera. I can see what it looks like in the left camera. I can see what it looks like in the front camera. And then last but not least, I can go in my perspective view and then clean up and then look at any funky meshes, any weird clipping, anything that's going to make my animation more appealing. I can see that much better from the perspective view. So you completely have that option. However, my personal workflow is this. I like to right click and I'll select 3 panes split from, I believe, the left. And this is my preferred view. So what I like to do is, this is my front view. This is my left view. And then this is just my perspective view. And then if at any point in time I'm like, you know what? I just want to see what my render camera looks like. I'll click on my render camera. Panels, look through selected. And then now I can see what my character looks like in that specific pose that I am going to be rendering from. Because at the end of the day, unless you do a turntable, and I'm not a big fan of turntables, they're very distracting. I don't know if other animators feel that same way when they're reviewing other people's animations. I personally do not like turntables for animation because it's very, very distracting when your character is rotating and I can't really tell where the timing and spacing is going because it's constantly rotating. So what I like to do is render from one camera view, and then once I have this one camera view right here, all I really need to do is make sure that this camera view looks clean. If this one camera looks very clean and the animation looks good from this camera, I really don't care what the tail looks like from this angle or this angle, as long as this looks good. At the end of the day, that's what matters the most. And that's what's going to give you more articulated feedback because it's only in one view. So with that done, I'm pretty satisfied with this pose for now. I could finesse this even further, but I think this is good as is. The last thing I really want to do is I want to quickly go here and just rotate my body forward a little bit. Now, you might be tempted to do just this. I'm going to push you a step further. Make sure that you also have the hip selected, because really it's the hip that is rotating most of the body. And then if you want your character really in its desired spot, you want to work from the bottom up. Do not do this by any means. Please do not do this. We're like, I just need the character rotated over. Let's just select this character. and then boom, like that. It's going to give you a very stiff pose because if your hip is not moving, it doesn't make any sense for your body to immediately hunch over. Try doing that at home. If you're watching right now, whoever's watching, I want you to deliberately try to crunch your body down without moving your hip or their bottom spine at all. Try doing that. It's the most difficult thing. You're going to have to bend or rotate forward if you want more of a bend. So, yeah, just make sure you do that. So let me rotate down. If it's easier, again, you can do what I did and just select the line. As you can tell, I'm accidentally animating this reference. I don't want to do that. So again, I'm just going to add it to my selected objects. Now it is a reference that I can no longer accidentally touch. So now that I have that, I'm going to go down or up the line and rotate my character like so. Now this is probably going to be a more tamed attack animation, but regardless, I want you to get the idea of what I'm trying to do. So now that I have this pose, I'm going to go to my next key pose. My next key pose being the anticipation. Now, it might be difficult for some people to pick an actual anticipation pose. You want to try to pick the strongest pose possible. So, this pose right here reads as I'm about to attack you right now. This one does not. And again, it's because my animation isn't synced. This honestly is a better pose. This looks like I'm ready to attack someone. And you know what? Let's just figure that out now. Let me see if I can maybe delay this reference so that it matches up with my other one even better. So what I'm going to do is find my key pose. Actually, find my contact. My contact is really, this is going to really dictate and match up my animation as close as possible. So let me find my contact in this one. My contact is when I'm making contact with the enemy, whatever the enemy may be. Now that I have this pose, I'm going to offset this one over here. And as you can see, I offset by 7 frames. I'm going to do it again so everyone can see. I am literally clicking on this, holding it down, and then moving it forward until I match my contact pose. So if I'm coming back, frame by frame, boom. Now I am perfectly matched up. So I did mention earlier in class that I would teach how to sync up something perfectly. However, this is also a completely valid method as well. So, boom, there you go. Now, as you can see, it is not perfectly matched up, but the contact, oh shoot, no, that's totally messed up. Yeah, okay, let me click that again. That's better. Oh, 7 really that far back? Hold on, I'm talking to myself. There we go, that's better. Okay. Much better. Okay, still obviously slightly out of sync. In a perfect world, I would film my reference side by side so that I know for a fact that my animation reference is going to match up. However, if you're in a pinch and you don't have the opportunity to do that because you only have one camera phone, that's okay too. You're always more than welcome to do what I've just done right now. Really, what you want to do is try to find a reference that is as close to orthographic as you can, where your feet and your body line up with the horizon. And then it's going to be much easier to kind of sync things together and animate from that reference. This is not good reference. This is much better reference. Okay, so now that I have that, next thing I want to do is do the anticipation pose. And I want to pick the pose that really looks like I am about to attack. And this looks like a pretty good pose to me. So, with that selected, next thing I'm going to do is go over to my reference. Let's turn off this grid so it's easier for me to be able to see. And I just want to see what my body is doing during this time. So, what I want to do is I just want to turn off this whole thing. I just want to see what my body is doing from the resting pose to the anticipation. So, first thing that I can see is I'm obviously moving backwards. That's good, because if you're anticipating something, you are kind of prepping by winding up all that energy so that it can be released further on. So, looking at this, even my hand is coming back like so. Everything's coming backwards. Even my weight is getting distributed over to this leg. I want you to see what happens to my hips, especially. So I'm really leaning into this right here, and I'm getting ready to propel that energy forward in my anticipation. So my body is kind of like this right here, slanted, with this being kicked up. So that's what's happening from this frame to the anticipation. And this feels pretty good to me. Okay, so I would say that this is the anticipation pose. So let's turn everything back on and try to hit that pose. Again, not stressing out too much, not worried. Really what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I'm trying to figure out what the motion of the body is first and foremost. So as I'm looking at this, I want to see, it looks like I'm kind of coming up a little bit. So yeah, I've almost got like a little like a figure going on here. Let me actually use the grease pencil really quick so it's easier to kind of illustrate what's happening in this image. So I'm starting right here. And I'm actually coming up a little bit on the waistline. And then I'm kind of blasting forward. But I am coming down just a little bit. So I'm kind of getting this nice little circle going on here where I'm jumping back a little bit, but I'm going up ever so slightly. And then I'm coming down. So I want to make sure that's a nice clean arc in that area. So let me go ahead and do that. So now that I'm looking at this, no shame. Let's put on the visualizer. Let's create the motion trail. And I want this to be, let's see how many frames it is. No more than 90. So let's just say 90 for now. Okay, set to 90. Create motion trail. Okay, and then friendly reminder, always make sure that all of your controls are selected and place them in their own layer like so. So let me go ahead and select all these other ones. Select these controllers, select the feet. I'm going to add this as a new layer. Call this controllers. Remember, I want to make sure that every controller is keyed on every keyframe. So now that I have all those selected, just press the S key. And let me just make sure that, again, that all the controllers are keyed. So let's go ahead and put this in perspective view. Select this. Select the head. Is that good? that's good. Maybe this wrist, this one here. Like so. Make sure that this isn't accidentally selected. Sometimes I accidentally animate my reference. Okay, I lucked out. Definitely didn't do that. All right, so that looks pretty good. It looks like everything got keyed on that frame, even, I believe, the tail. Perfect. Cool. So now that everything's keyed on that frame, again, if I'm looking at my timing on this character for my reference, I actually don't like the timing. The timing is incredibly slow. So what I want to make sure, though, is that my keyframes are set. So let's go ahead and look at this again. That's a pretty good anticipation. This sells that I'm about to do something in both of these images. So I want to try to hit both of those as close as possible. Now, remembering that my hip is kind of coming up a little bit. Let's go ahead and look at that. Let's see. Perfect. That's a good pose to hit. Okay. So now that I have this selected, I'm going to dial this back. Actually, let me fix this first. Yes, the Z should be at 0. And then this one. On frame 26. Frame 26. We'll make that our anticipation for now. So let's go ahead and jet this back. Like so. And as you can see, my foot is moving forward when I'm making this attack. I might change that. We'll see. We'll keep it out for now. I don't want to over animate this to the best of my ability. So, okay, so that's good. And also keep in mind that your animation should be in flat and stepped. However, I don't want to skip that at all. And to further drive that home, I want to make sure that these are all also flat and stepped. So let me select all of these. Remember to get the feet. And we'll take a break at 12 p.m. just so everyone knows who's watching in class right now. Again, this is the less exciting part, watching me basically hit all of these poses. But as you can tell, I definitely don't want to skip any steps. I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. And it really does take time to sit down and learn and engage with what's happening with the mechanics of the body in our reference. So less exciting, but honestly, it's kind of cool to watch the building blocks make the animation. So we've got this. Again, making sure that all of these are flat and stepped. That way I'm not distracted by any of the in-betweens that Maya likes to put in for me. Now that that's been fixed, let's see what happens to this view. So again, I just want to see what the body's doing. So let's see, Calvin add, perfect. Okay, controllers I want to see. Perfect. So I want to see what's happening to my body here. So it looks like I am coming back, actually. And my foot is also moving up, but to the side as well. So you know what? I actually, even though I said I didn't want to animate that, I do want to, because that's going to sell some better movement for me. So rather than kind of like, oh, you know, I don't want to put in the extra work, I'm going to put in the extra work. So let's go to frame, I believe it's 26. And my frame is just, or my foot is just coming up more. Sorry, that's not the foot. There we go. Perfect. And you know what? Actually, I don't want this at all. I'm going to hide all of this. It's not letting me hide. Never mind. So, actually, I wonder if I can do that. I just want to see if I can hide this really quick, just so I don't accidentally animate it. It's probably not going to work, though. Yeah, it doesn't work. It gets rid of everything. I've done that before, but obviously it doesn't help. Okay, that's okay. What we can do, though, is animate this foot here. And again, I don't need to animate the kind of in-betweens right now. I just want to animate the foot going forward because I know this character is going to be moving forward in space. Like so. And I might want to do this just a little bit more. That's perfect. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Okay, next thing I want to do is also looking at these knees. Let's just see what's happening in the knees. So this is actually jetting out a little bit more because I'm putting that weight and pressure on my leg. So to combat that, let's just grab the knee controller and let's just move it that way. And obviously make sure that the knee controller is also flat. Perfect. Again, we don't want any rogue animations happening. I don't want Maya to try to influence what the animation should look like. We are the individuals who should be influencing what the animation should look like. So make sure this one is also flat and stepped. Perfect. Cool. So now that we have that, this is already feeling a lot better. And as you can see, again, looking at my reference, coming back, I'm rotated forward, but in this pose, I'm actually rotating my spine a lot more to be more of a C shape on this angle. So I'm going to, again, remember, rotate my body backwards, like so. And I'm just going to keep rotating like so. And maybe even crunch this down a little bit, like this. And then rotate like this more. One thing that you also want to keep in mind as well, something that an old mentor of me has taught me, and it was incredibly helpful. These should not look broken. Even if you are hitting the pose that you want, these torso controllers should be in smooth harmony. The line of action, as you can tell, is kind of giving me this shape right here, and I'll quickly draw it so you can all see it. But also don't be afraid to do this in your references. The line of action is this. I want to make sure that the controllers are also in that direction as well. I'm going to show you what, actually I don't even know if I can. Let's see. Yeah, maybe this is a good example of what not to do. Okay, see how this is like obviously broken? This is like clipping into each other. You want to avoid that when you're doing the torso. Keep that in mind. When you are animating the hips up to the torso, you want to make sure that the flow of even the controllers is good. Because if that flow is broken, you best believe when you're doing your splining, it's going to start contorting and doing these weird things. So you also want to make sure that the flow of this is very, very good as well. So now that I have that, let's go ahead and delete some of these. Delete that too. Perfect. Awesome. Cool beans. And let's go ahead and fix this again. So this is coming down. Let's see. And you know what? Let me go back to the front view. I want to make sure that this back foot is also in a reasonable place. That looks pretty good to me, actually. So let's go back here. And when in doubt, don't ever be afraid to look at the top view and make sure that your character can survive the skateboard test. So if my character was on a skateboard, I would say that they would be pretty even. They'd be pretty good right now. So when in doubt, don't be afraid to look at the top view and be like, you know what, I don't think that looks good. Also, don't be afraid to use the top view to look at your curves as well. And that's definitely something that I do in the cleanup stage. We haven't had much time to do like real cleanup in this class, but again, there's just not enough time to teach this class. In a perfect world, teaching just this attack sometimes could be like half a semester to get it down right so that you can put it on a demo reel. So, especially if you're learning or you're just starting out. So let's go back to the front view. And let's just see what's happening on this view as well. So let's get rid of this. So let's see what's happening in my spine from here to here. So my body's definitely rotating back into space, which is good because that's what I'm doing. All the way to frame, was it frame 26? Yes. And my spine's actually coming up a little bit. So let's do that too. That's weird. Why you do this? I don't know why it's auto splining. Let me just make sure my animation settings set correctly. Yeah, it's right. What are you doing? Come on, Maya. Why are you doing this to me? You're embarrassing me. There we go. You're still doing it. Maya. Okay, let's hide the motion trail. Again, I'm very adamant. I'm trying to be as anal as possible when it comes to making sure that Maya is not animating for me. It's so easy for us to let Maya to do that. I don't want that at all, though. This should all be flat and stopped. It's rotating. I want to say it's you. Why are you doing this to me? It's being weird. Yeah, sometimes Maya will just do that. I literally just reanimated it, and now it's fixed. That's weird. So keep in mind, sometimes Maya, I guess 2022 is doing that. I've never had that problem before, and Maya 2018 or 2019. But hey, you know, sometimes you gotta find a workaround. Okay, so now that I've got that, and sometimes it's nice to just bop back and forth to see what's going on. And as you can see, my hip's coming out on this frame, which makes sense because I'm incredibly off balance here. And I also want to take a quick look through the spine really quick. Kind of want to rotate this a little bit more this way. And then finally rotating all of this down. as you can see, this foot also comes out, which makes sense because this feels incredibly imbalanced. So let's go ahead and rebalance that. Let's go back to the front view, perspective. And this is also coming out a little bit more. And let's see if it's rotating too. Oh, it does rotate, hell yeah. All right, let's rotate this bad boy out. Like so. And then to fix the knee, remember this knee is not in all the same direction. Sometimes I like to turn on color so it's easier to see what's going on. And that's looking better. But you know what? Like something just doesn't feel right here. Let me see what's happening if I turn off the body. That's what it is. Okay, so if you don't already see, this angle is way more sharper here. And my goblin is not hitting that angle. So let me turn off the ads. Sorry, naked goblin. Sorry, everyone. So let's see what's happening here. So, you know, it's funny, even though it's not matching my reference, I don't care. This is actually a better anticipation where I'm coming down because I'm amping up that energy just like a bouncing ball. So this is one of those instances where now I'm starting to push my poses a little bit more to get more out of them. I don't like this this pose that I have in my reference. It's kind of coming up. And then it's just kind of like weirdly going up all of a sudden. What would be nice is if my character came down and then came up to kind of like a really jetting attack. So again, reference is there to have as reference. If I wanted to replicate this perfectly, then I just wouldn't animate. I would just have my actual reference do the talking for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to change my reference to this now instead. Let's see, my motion trail. Remember, you want to name your motion trail. I'm going to call this hip. And you know what? Let me actually delete that motion trail. It's kind of giving me some weird issues. So let's create creatable motion trail. And you know what? Here's actually what I'm going to do. For these tutorials, everyone who's watching, and this is specifically for my class, just so everyone knows, I'm going to do the first half of this tutorial today so that you have something to work off of. And hopefully that helps you. And for those who are interested in doing the acting or pantomime, I will do that in the second half of class, and that will be the first half of the tutorial. That way you all have something that you can work on and work towards, because honestly, the pantomime, it's going to be close to this. You're getting the same body mechanics out of it. And honestly, I would do the reference in the exact same way. However, I also want you to feel like you have time to do that acting piece if you so choose. So we'll just do as much as I can up until 12 p.m. for lunch. We'll break, and then I'll do the rest of our tutorial on the acting piece, and we'll call it there. That way you have something to work on for the next week, and you have something to show as well. But honestly, the blocking stage is hands down the most important. So let's go ahead and keep doing that. So, okay. Next thing that we're doing, there's this really, really smooth and awesome motion that we kind of have on the shoulder blade. So what I'm trying to look at right here in this reference here, I just want to see what the shoulder's doing. So right now the shoulder's pretty stiff. It stays a little stiff, but it's kind of coming out a little bit. And then it's rotating down. The elbow is rotating down, meaning that the shoulder is also rotating down as well. So, and back for that matter. So it's rotating down and back. And that makes sense because that's what's giving us this gnarly pose right here. I'm just going to jet this down a little bit. And again, I'm just trying to hit this as close as possible. I'm not going to get too crazy, but another reason why you want to make sure that you're working in different views, I want to make sure that this wrist isn't broken. And looking at it from here, you can see that it comes down a little bit more. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's go perfect, like so. Oh, I missed the eyebrows. He looks so weird without the eyebrows. Hold on, let me just turn on those eyebrows. Nice, much better. Appealing. Okay. So now that we have that, I'm going to try to hit this pose a little bit closer. Remember, you want to try to keep the silhouette as close as possible. You want a strong silhouette above else. If I was, again, looking at my camera view, let's go ahead and pop that one on, the render cam. Panels, look through selected. This is a pretty strong silhouette. I like this silhouette. Obviously, I need to push it further by kind of like rotating and moving things how I would want them to, but please don't forget to continue to look at your actual reference. So looking here, my shoulder really gets into even the front of my head over here. So let's see if I can jet that out a little bit forward more. Like so. And I'm going to rotate this out. Let's kind of tilt this in a little bit more. So this jets out more. And this should really be rotating down like so. Again, using the animation reference to hit these nice poses. If anyone is having a difficult time with animating, I cannot express this enough. Reference, reference, reference. One of my favorite things to do when I was a student, again, in your same shoes right now, is anytime someone would say, hey, I'm doing this scene for my final project where I'm lifting someone on my back and I'm carrying them up this huge mountaintop. How would you recommend animating that? When they're asking their animation professor, how would I animate that? I would always come in and immediately say, have you shot reference for that yet? Oh no, that's probably a good idea. And then the professor would immediately say, yeah, shoot reference. And I'm telling you now the same thing, because I literally carried that person on my back up the flight of stairs, up the parking structure, so that they could have good animation reference. And that's how dedicated I am. But I jest. But in all sincerity, yes, I actually filmed that reference where I carried another animation student up, like I think 2 flights of stairs up the parking structure so that they could have good reference of them being able to animate their character going up this snowy mountain. So, as you can see, I honestly for a moment thought in my head, hey, you know what? Maybe I can teach this lesson without reference. I don't want to suffer any more than you do. And I don't want to try to convince you that you don't need reference, because again, even at Blizzard, we're constantly using reference to make it easy for us to animate. So there is no shame. If anything, it's actually preferred, but you should absolutely have some reference at your disposal. So now that I've got this, let me start trying to hit these poses a little bit better. Like so. And for this one, notice how I was trying to rotate this right here, but I'm still not getting that satisfying like crunch into the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the shoulder controller, which is hiding back here, or you can just kind of select it like that. And I'm going to jet that back even more. Sorry, that's both shoulder controllers. My mistake. Which is kind of fun. Look at that. All right. Enough me messing around. Let me go back to perspective view. Let's select this elbow controller. Unfortunately, it's kind of snuck in a little bit. It's probably inside the mesh. Where are you? Right here. Perfect. Sometimes that'll happen where your controller gets stuck in the mesh. So let's just jet this back a little bit more. And already that's feeling way, way better. So remember, I'm animating the shoulder to get the shot that I want, not the sorry. Yeah, the shoulder. Oh no, this is technically the shoulder. Man, I just pooed out for a second. My brain. Let's hold on. Yeah, that's actually still good. Okay, that's good. I'm not breaking it. Also be mindful of breaking things. You may want to say like, oh, but Rudy, this is totally broken. Yes, it absolutely is, but I can always turn that controller on and fix the cape if I wanted to. So another thing that I have done earlier is I made sure to stress test this rig to make sure that the cape was also something that I could animate if I wanted to. So let's see right here. Yeah, if I turn on the head, I can fix that cape. And there's another older animation that I've done with this character that I've done before. But let's see, just to show you what it would look like if I were to fix this like so. Oh, you know what? That kind of sucks. Yeah, that axis is not big enough. In a perfect world, what I would love to do is obviously make that like that. So it's kind of covering that, but then at the same time, it ruins this shape too. So yeah, that looks terrible. If I were to do an actual video game animation, I would want to make sure that that is as clean as possible because you're going to be looking at this from different angles. Honestly, what I would probably have to do, if this is something that is actually going into a video game, this would be completely unacceptable because it's just so obvious that it's breaking the rig. You have a couple options if you're working in the studio. Option number one, you can go to your handy dandy rigger and tell them, hey, I love you. Here's a gift card to Starbucks. Also, can you fix this cape for me? In a perfect world. However, that's not always the case. So one thing that I might just have to do is just drop this like so. And that kind of gives me the desired effect that I want. Even more so, I could probably just come here, select just this one. And let's see if I can drop that down to give me a better desired look, like so. Much better. Okay, so yes, I will continue to teach this like I would if I'm putting this into a video game. Again, another reason why you want to check your different angles. If I was only doing one angle, however, I would definitely go back and just go to my render camera, and I would only worry about this specific angle. Definitely something you want to keep in mind. If you're ever making a video game animation, you want to make sure that it looks good from different angles as well. So to fix that, I had to drop that down. I'm going to have to cheat this a little bit now and see if I can get the desired effect without trying to clip the shoulders, and I am. So that's actually looking okay for now. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm really bummed out that I can't. Oh wait, I can move this. The technology. Okay, screw that. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Let's see. That looks horrendous. I don't want that at all. So again, you can cheat your animation, and if I were to, if I wasn't able to move this at all, I would definitely keep that as is. However, I don't have to. I'm able to move this. So what I'm going to do is go back to my original pose, like so, and I'm just going to move this cape up, like so. Pull that in, and I can cheat this animation if I want to. It's much, much easier to cheat this, like so. There you go. Not the cleanest, but much better than it was before. If I wanted to push this even more, let's just kick that back a little bit, push it forward, and down just a smidge. And that's already way, way better. Perfect. And I get to keep that awesome pose. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to lift this up to match this even closer. Like so. Again, I was able to translate this no problem. If I was only able to rotate, this would be a pain in the butt. However, I don't have to do that. So I can just keep that as is, translate that. I also want to make sure that this is keyed. I'm going to key that too and make sure that this is not translated. Like so. So this is going to take some finessing when I'm going from this pose to this pose. But again, I want to make sure this is good from all angles. So I don't have much more time. So the last thing I'm going to do is do the contact. If I have time to finish the contact, great. If not, I'm sorry. But I also want to give time to give you the first half of the acting tutorial as well. So let's just look at this one more time from this view. Again, you may be tempted to animate the eyes. I'm not going to animate that yet. However, if you did want the eye controls after doing your attack animation, all you have to do is do facial on. And that should unlock the eyes. If not, it is, let's see, I believe it's head control on. Head control is what's going to give you those extra eye options. And if I were to adjust this, I would just move the eyes like so. Another thing you want to keep in mind, if you're doing facial animations, you want to make sure that your pupil isn't covered all the way. So to combat that, I'm actually just going to dial this one down a little bit. And it's a much more appealing animation, mind you. So this looks dead. It looks like a dead eye. To change that, you just want to make sure that at least your pupil is more visible. And already you can get way more character by making sure that more of your pupil is in there. Also keep in mind, it makes sense because if you're covering your pupil, that's what you actually use to absorb light and see things. If that's covered, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's obviously more appealing when you can see more of the pupil. Keep that in mind. Okay, so again, I don't want to get too excited with that. I'm going to turn that off. Let's see, so facial control off. And I'm not going to continue to animate the face for the rest of the time. Okay, so that's done. Let's see what's happening. Okay, that's looking kind of fun. But am I getting the same energy? I feel like I can push this even further. So to do that, I'm going to push myself even back more. Again, I don't want to break that leg too much. I'm actually going to kick this down even more. Remember, I want to try to push this animation even further. And that feels way better to me. So I'm feeling more of the impact when I'm coming down like this. So I'm going to keep that. And then last but not least, I want to do that contact pose. And this is going to be really fun. So let's just jet this forward like so. Animate this foot over here. Also, friendly reminder to everyone who is animating in class, please remember to tell me that you're going to be using a different rig. There are a handful of individuals who have chosen to use a rig that was not approved by me, and I'm telling you all right now, unfortunately, that bad rig is forcing our animation to look even worse than it actually is. So that's why I told everyone, please, and please still remember to this day, whatever rig you're using, if you are not using the Goblin rig or the Body Mechanics rig, you had to have told me that you are using an alternate rig. Really, there's only a handful of people that I already know that I have approved. If you do not remember me explicitly telling you that your rig was approved, I'm telling you right now, your rig probably lowered the grade. It's not your fault, it's the rig we chose. So remember, sometimes there are rigs out there that are they're just not good. And if you try to animate on them, it doesn't matter how great you are, the rig is terrible. So please keep in mind, if you are using anything else other than the Goblin or the Body Mechanics rig, and you have not already spoken to me, I'm telling you right now, that rig is probably not doing us a service. It's probably working against us. So please keep that in mind. If you are concerned, if you are that individual, please contact me directly on DM. So, now that we have that, let me just quickly try to get this body in as close as possible. Remember, now that I have the hips, I want to make sure that I have the... actually, no, let's fix those hips. Let's get rid of all the rotations just to make it easier on my brain. Perfect. So now that we have all those rotations zeroed out, the next thing I want to do is make sure that my rotations look correct. So let me go and see through here. Perfect. Gotta get some more rotation in there. Leaning back a little bit more. And again, I just want to see what my legs are doing. So if I'm looking at my foot, see how all of this weight and energy is coming over the foot? So that's what's giving me that extra foundation of weight. But right now, I'm not going to animate the foot that much. Maybe I'll just move it a little bit over to the side like so. A little bit of rotation and maybe a little bit of roll on the side. Actually, let's keep that there. That's perfect. I'm actually going to use this foot controller to assist me. Like so. So that way the foot's not really moving out of place. I'm keeping it in the same spot, which is nice. Remember, sometimes you want to do that. Okay. Now with that, the next thing I want to do is I want to roll over to the side a little bit, like so. So let me just put that as 1. That's not really visible enough. How about 25? That's too much. 5. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, actually looks pretty good. And remember, it's that little subtle thing that's giving us more weight distribution, and that's feeling like the character is moving over a particular spot. So now with that, I'm going to start to rotate this body a lot more. Remember when I was critiquing my last animation, it just didn't feel right on the walk. And it's because I didn't have enough rotation like so. So if I'm looking at my chest is really coming over, and I'm getting this really, really like barely see like my left breast. So if I'm looking at this view again, yeah, I want to barely see my left breast there. So rather than, remember, I don't want to animate this part only. Most of the movement should actually be coming down from the base. So if I'm going down here, rotate that even further, then I can rotate this, and then I can just slightly rotate this. Remember, most of our motion should actually come from this hip right here. Otherwise, it's just going to look completely stiff. So, and looking at just that alone, that's feeling pretty good. Next thing I want to do is go onto this frame. I just want to change this knee. If you look at my knees, check out the knees. Let me just key that really quick. All right, so let's check out the knee from frame 38 from 26. So if I'm looking at this, my knee's definitely coming on over. So at first on this frame, it's actually following the foot pretty well. Actually, let me move that just a little bit. Actually, dang, that's freaking broken. That's really broken. Hold on, let's see if this fixes it. No, then it feels like it's gonna come up. Let's move it more this way. That feels slightly better. Yeah, again, something to keep in mind, like the ankles are always like, oh, it's really, really difficult. But then again, my foot should be rolling over on the other side as well. So let's see if that makes a difference. That feels better. So as you can see, I'm using the controller to kind of help me out a little bit. That way the knee doesn't feel so broken. Now that I have that fixed, let's fix this knee. Just like in my reference, my knee's kind of jetting out. And if you can see, my knee actually does kind of like an overextension as I'm doing the follow through. So remember, breaking down our animation, just go out of here really quick, and this will be the last thing that I'll really cover for this. And honestly, the most helpful for anyone who's interested in doing an attack animation. The main thing that you want to remember is this. Let's count the poses. Let's count the key poses. First key pose is your idle or your resting pose. Your next key pose is your anticipation pose. After that comes your contact pose, which is number 3. You have your follow through pose, which is number 4. And then last but not least, you have your return. Let's see, yeah. Your follow through, your return, and then if you want to count your last key pose, it's up to you. But technically frame number 6 is returning all the way back to your resting pose. So technically you have 5 major key poses that you need to hit when you're doing an attack animation. So as a quick overview, just so everyone knows, your first key pose is going to be your idle or your rest. Your next key pose is your anticipation. Your third key pose is the contact. This is when you're actually making contact with what you're attacking. Then after you make contact, all that energy has to go somewhere, and that goes into the follow through. Once you're done with the follow through, then you have your return. Your return can be like about right here. Really, it's that spot that makes you look like you're pulling back. And then finally, you go back into your rest or your idle pose. So hopefully this is of assistance to all of you. This is part 1 of how to do an attack animation. I will now do part 1 of how to do an acting piece after we come back from the lunch. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you all again in the next video.